there were these stepping stones happening, but now that I look back, I really see there were lots of things that fell into place in a certain way to lead me to where I am now.
Right.
And so when I think back even to my childhood and growing up, I remember always being really interested in babies and moms and pregnancy. And so I have 2 younger brothers, but there's a good age difference between us. So I was 7 when the first brother was born. Okay. And so I remember my mom telling me, like, as I was older, she told me, like, you were so curious. You just wanted to know, like, where do babies come from?
Yeah.
And how is this happening? And so from an early age, I think naturally I had that curiosity because I was old enough to recognize that, like, things are happening here, and babies are being born. So, and then I remember every time we would go to the hospital to maybe visit a family member or a friend or whatever reason maybe took us to the hospital, I loved going by and looking in, like, peeking into the nursery window, which, we don't really have those anymore. But it was just always fun, like, let's go look at the babies. Yeah. And that was just always something that I loved. So when I went to college, I knew that I wanted to work with families in some capacity. And, it just took a little while to figure out exactly what that would be. So my undergraduate degree is in child and family development. And throughout school, I had opportunities to do various volunteer work. And so one of my classes had us we had to find a nonprofit or an organization in the community and, do some sort of volunteer work. And so I volunteered with Prevent Child Abuse is, I guess, a national organization. And so I was with the local chapter, and they had a specific program that it was called First Steps. And we would go into the hospital and meet with new parents. Like 1 or 2 days after the baby had been born, we would go in and share information about safe sleep and baby blues and different things. So that's another example of just me finding myself in that, like, pregnancy, birth, parent, new parenthood type situation. But I didn't really recognize that at that point as, leading me to become a doula. So
where were you at college?
University of Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, fast forward, I decided to go to graduate school. That's what brought me to Philadelphia. So I went to Penn, studied social work. I initially thought I would do marriage and family therapy, and then I realized social work is just much more broad and would provide me with lots of other, avenues that I could go down. I was really drawn to, thank you. It's okay.
When you come to my house, you get pieces of tape that babies have chewed on. It's your door prize.
I was drawn to adoption work. So there again, and more specifically, I like the idea of working with individuals or couples who were considering adoption, perhaps, as an option, if they felt like they weren't in a place to parent, that adoption was a possible option for them. And so, again, working with pregnant women, and I was just always continuously being drawn back to that. And so, eventually I graduated. I did a few jobs that had nothing to do with pregnancy and maternity, but my husband and I moved to Nashville in 2014, and we were there for 3 years. And while we lived there, I worked at a nonprofit that really focused in on services for unplanned pregnancy, pregnancy loss, and postpartum depression, or really just maternal mental health in general. And so that was probably the turning point for me as far as really realizing that type of environment or just type of work is something that I loved so much. And so I oversaw the pregnancy services program there, was able to coordinate and lead new moms groups and education classes, and we had a mentor program for our families and a counseling program. And so being able to coordinate all of that was just like, I just loved it. And I loved helping these expectant families, find resources and feel ready and prepared and equipped for having their babies. Being a nonprofit, we utilized volunteers a lot, and so we had some volunteer doulas come to our agency. So I know this is kind of a long story, but it all kind of played a part in getting me to here. So
was that the first time you ever heard of a doula?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, maybe I had before, but never to the point that it was like a true awareness of that there are things such as birth and postpartum doulas. So some of the doulas, provided support to our clients, and I was able to learn about what they do. And around that time, I knew that there was a possibility that we would be moving somewhere, and it ended up being back to Philadelphia. And I knew that even though I loved the work I was doing, full-time social work, day in and day out, at that point I was hitting like my 5-year mark after graduation and working for 5 years as a social worker, and it was just emotionally just a little bit overwhelming. And the thought of, is this going to be sustainable and doable for me full-time forever? And so it really came at the right time, like me learning about birth work and doula work, and it just felt right. Because of my job, I was constantly on Facebook and social media trying to find like new topics and ideas and things to incorporate into my program at work. And so, social media picks up on what you like and pages that you scroll through. And
in a kind of scary way sometimes.
Yes. And so an ad popped up about the training organization that I went with. They were hosting a free webinar to learn about being a birth doula, and essentially it was them promoting their training program. But it came just at the perfect time, and I watched, I tuned into that webinar, and it was kind of just things fell into place. It felt right. It was a little crazy because it was kind of came out of nowhere, but it felt like the right thing because I knew that I was needing to figure out my next steps as far as like what am I going to do with my life. And so signed up for the training, and then it just felt like it was the direction I needed to go in, and it felt like a really good way to still hold on to my social work training and background. I saw it as a way to incorporate a lot of the work that I was already doing. With social work, we learn all about the importance of evidence-based practice and, research and helping to utilize that information to make informed decisions, and the advocacy piece, and, connecting families to resources.
You are being the stinkiest stinker. You stay here. You stay here. Sorry for the earthquake. That's all Jania.
Even just the people skills of knowing how to sit down and talk to people, and to be with them through tough times or through new life changes. And so I thought, even though it feels crazy to kind of deviate from what I went to school for, it also felt like it's a way to bring together both of these interests of mine and still utilize my social work background as a solid foundation to help with being a doula. And so, hi.
You are a camera hog today.
And so anyway, I hope that kind of helps to explain how it all unfolded. I think too, it just happened at the perfect time because shortly thereafter, my husband got a job back in Philadelphia, so we knew that we would be moving, and it was really the perfect time for me to go in a new direction. So when we moved back, I did take on a part-time social work job at an adoption agency, which I still currently do, but it's so flexible that it doesn't interfere really at all with being on call. I'm able to just arrange my schedule. It just works out perfectly. And it's part-time, so it gives me lots of time to devote to whether it's doing more training or taking on more births or whatever it may be. So it's worked out really well. With my social work background, I also really try to heavily focus on the mental health piece of pregnancy and parenthood and what that can look like for families. And at that previous job, had the opportunity to teach and screen and even provide some counseling for women who were dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety. And so I feel very strongly about incorporating that into my doula work. I think most all doulas do have some knowledge about that and certainly try to recognize when families may need additional support. And so I think I just want to do maybe even more, and just because of that experience that I have. And so I actually have an additional prenatal visit that I do with my families where we talk all about maternal mental health and really also how it can impact fathers as well, partners, fathers, really any parent, can experience the challenges that come with just that adjustment of a new baby.
How do you time those two different visits?
So, it kind of depends. I think with each family, it just kind of depends on like how schedules play out. But I would say sometimes we'll do that one maybe a little earlier on, so that our last visit is more like hands-on practice for the birth. But it kind of just depends.
Oh, it's an additional prenatal.
Yes.
You do it not initial postpartum.
No, I do it prenatally.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I'm
sorry
that
if
makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we go over some of the statistics and some of the risk factors and what are symptoms and when to recognize and talk about like what's normal. You know, that it's totally normal to feel emotional and overwhelmed and even a little sad, or like you're happy one moment and then you're crying the next. You know, in those first couple of weeks after having a baby.
Oh, Junia.
So we talk about that, and then I provide lots of information on, but these are other symptoms to look out for, and this is what you want to pay attention to if this begins to linger past that 2 to 3 week mark, and if it becomes to where it's truly impacting your day-to-day functioning. And so we'll go into a little more depth about that. Yeah, so I review that prenatally because I think it's important for families to just really be aware that this can happen to anyone.
Right.
And the more we talk about it, the less stigmatized it is, and the more people know that it's okay to reach out for help. And not that I think that all my families are going to experience it, but if they do, I want them to have the resources that they need. So I also share lots of resources in their local area so that they know where they can call.
And certainly then if there's someone who feels especially fearful, whether it's a family history, other risk factors, or just where they are, you might be a really great fit for them because you're going to be alongside them really helping to know how to navigate understanding what's going on. I guess I don't ever get around to this until my postpartum visits, but again, with the sort of our theme of how like stories are so memorable for people, I always share the story with people about how when my first daughter was born, and it was, that first week after, and you're often taking ibuprofen on a regular basis for your physical healing. And I remember pouring to get the 2 or 3 ibuprofen in my hand, and my baby was asleep on the bed over here, and having this thought, oh no, what if it bounces out of my hand and bounces into her mouth? And just being a really, sometimes those off the wall, they don't feel like they come from you sort of thoughts are just, they just crop up in those first days and weeks after your baby's born. And just being aware of things like that. And like you said, when they become actually impairing your day-to-day functioning, and you can't come against that thought and say, oh, well, that's not really going to happen. But you start it when it turns into fear and panic and the inability to counter those sorts of thoughts. But sometimes I think just hearing stories from someone else that says, oh yeah, I cried every day a little bit, or what sorts of things are normal. And then what's harder and more than you should have to deal with because it's beyond expected. Oh, you little girl. You're supposed to be sleeping. Instead, you're being the naughtiest. This is how we've been. She loves, I don't know if you were living in Philadelphia around the time where we had they finally caught somebody on camera in the grocery store who was squishing bread on purpose as some sort of bread squishing fetish. But I think that Junia is along those lines. She likes to go get the bread out of the bread drawer and just hug it. I catch her about 15 times a day hugging bread.
That's cute.
Why don't you go hug some bread and let me and Miss Mallori chat? I know. You're not the show here. You're really not. Let's see. I think it's also fun just to hear sort of totally personal interest, things that have nothing to do with doula work, because that's part of people just getting to enjoy and get a sense of who you are. And so much of finding the right doula is the chemistry that you feel. And so one thing you mentioned was college football, which people from around here don't know. So tell us a little bit more about what it is like for you, having grown up, the things that you really appreciate about where you grew up in the South, that maybe you miss since you're up here, but then also maybe some things about Philly that you've come to love and appreciate.
It's so funny. When I moved here, it was culture shock. But I'm great. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I moved here. Hi. Because it just opened me up to a whole new world.
Yeah.
You know, just that diversity. So I grew up out in the country. Mm-hmm. You know, it was a 30-minute drive to get to the nearest Walmart or bigger grocery store.
Okay.
And, you know, we're driving through the woods, basically. Yes. So, and then my family did move a little more into the town. But, so yeah, moving here was eye-opening for me. Mm-hmm. It was just a great opportunity to learn about different people and different cultures and different ways of life. And that was just so good for me, because I did grow up in a pretty, you know, not very diverse place. But things that I love about where I am from, so I went to the University of Georgia. Mm-hmm. SEC football is huge. Like, college football is huge in the South.
And which team is your team?
Yeah, so the Georgia Bulldogs.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's so funny because my husband says that I act so, like, when we're watching games, it's like, you know, I act, because I'm actually a very quiet, kind of somewhat reserved person. Uh-huh. Yeah, not during
until
those games.
Football.
Yeah. So that's when it's like, lots of yelling and shouting and jumping up and all that good stuff. But it's just something about, like, the atmosphere. And so going to college there and, like, going to the games and just being there, it's just like nothing you've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And unless you know, maybe Eagles fans feel that way too about, you know, that's how it is here. But I
think just like the bass drum of the marching band, though, is a different feel. There's something so different about a high school or a college game versus, you know, showing up to the scantily clad cheerleaders and the overpriced beer and, you know.
Yes, and even during the game this past weekend that we were watching, my husband, he always comments about, they keep playing the same song. And I was like, it's just part of it.
Yeah.
Like, the band is there. They're going to play the music. It's just part of it. Yeah. And it's fun. And there's a student section. And, you know, so it just brings back lots of fun memories of those college days that were just... And so now friends of mine, you know, we were in college over, you know, 10 plus years ago, but we still have this connection where it's like, we're like, you know, texting back and forth about the game and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's a huge part of just where I was from.
Yeah.
But also, like, boiled peanuts and fried okra and, you know, just the southern stuff that you just maybe don't know about unless you have that chance to try it. People either love it or hate it type thing. One thing that was interesting when I moved here, I had to quickly teach myself, or I quickly learned that, like, the eye contact when you walk down the sidewalk, you don't really necessarily do that here the way that you might where I grew up. Certainly there are very nice people in Philly. It's just a different feel. It's just a different pace of life, and that's okay.
I think one of the iconic Philadelphia things to me is, like, you think people in the North have no manners, like Yankees with no manners, but if you ever go to an intersection and it's not clear who's supposed to go first, there's been times where I'll, you know, wave someone, and I do like a wave, and I feel like it's most often a middle-aged man will be like, and they're not like, that's Philadelphia manners. They're letting me go first. They want me to go first, but they want me to go quickly because then it's their turn. And so Philadelphia is much more like, listen, this is our group, this is our pace, this is our whole way of being, and we have a reason for it. Like, but it does, you know, until you get to know it, you'd be like, I grew up in Ohio. My sister went to college here, so my exposure was coming as a grade schooler to visit my sister. And just being in the grocery store, I was like, it's so rude here. I would never want to live somewhere like Philadelphia. Yet here I am. But you just have to understand the different brand of courtesy. Very different than Southern hospitality.
Yeah. But I've grown to love it. I mean, this is my second home. Yeah, and it's a good place.
And then it probably makes it extra sweet to go back home.
Yeah.
Do you have your family's also down there? Their brothers down there as well?
Yeah, I have one brother in Virginia and one in Georgia, and my mom and dad are both in Georgia. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. It's probably not snowing in Georgia like today. Thank you, Junia. Junia wants us to have an old football game for French.
No, that also, my first winter here, yeah, I mean, I had to learn, like, how to drive in the snow, how to walk in the snow. I remember, because school just closes, you know, where I'm from. I mean, there's, like, one hint of even what we had today, and it's like, school's, you know, letting out or whatever. Thank you. I remember my first winter here was probably one of the, like, snowiest winters that I've experienced living here, and, you know, I'm walking to my classes with like a foot of snow on the ground, and it's just like, what is going on? Like, why is class still happening? So.
Well, you know, that time they didn't shut school down, and like half of Atlanta got stuck on the freeway for hours and hours, so they have to do it. Oh, thank you. At least we have a quiet game going here. You give me this, and then I put it very quiet, and then you go get it. Then you go get it. She's crashed. I think she's working on like at least 40 to 50% of it. She's crashing. So there's several different specific trainings that you have done. What are some of those things that you've taken extra steps to want to be specialized in to help people in certain situations? Yeah. So when I first moved back to Philly, actually I was doing my research so that I knew what types of, like, trying to get connected with people once I moved back here, like birth world related people. And so one of my first trainings that I took was Brittany McCollum's Creating Space workshop, which I was a brand new doula at that point, so it was like a little bit over my head. Okay. But it was a great introduction to, like, wow, there's so much to learn about the pelvis and the way the body can move, and just how birth can unfold in such a beautiful way, and how hands-on we can be in teaching our families about those really important. And you probably made some other great professional connections there as well. Yeah, and so, I'm really glad that I went to her workshop early on, because it not only introduced me to her, and I'm kind of obsessed with just all the great things she teaches, but it helped me realize that I want to know the ins and outs of how to help people learn how to move their body and how to create that space. And so that's something that I've really tried to study more and more, and I've taken a lot of her trainings on just the pelvic dynamics and pelvic biomechanics, and just how crucial that can be to helping baby and be in the best position to help, you know, with any hiccups that can come along throughout the birth process. So that's one area that I really love to learn about, and I feel like, you know, I could just keep learning more and more about that. And then other more specialized trainings, so I've done a hypnodoula training through Hypnobaby, and I've really loved that. My second birth, the family, she had decided on her own to do the Hypnobaby's home study program, and so she's the one who introduced it to me. And so I was able to learn about it through her, and, you know, I studied enough to know how to support her throughout the birth, but then I went on to do the actual training through Hypnobabies, you know, so that I can support families, whether it's Hypnobabies or another hypnobirthing model. There's certain things that you would do differently, providing support to families using hypnobirthing. So that's an area of interest of mine, and I would love to grow and, you know, providing more support to more families that are choosing to go that route. And then I've also done a couple of VBAC trainings, and just love the idea of just, again, equipping families with as much information that, you know, as possible to help them achieve the birth that they really want to have. And so those are areas that I'm really hoping to grow in and get more experience. And I tend to get really excited about a lot of things all at once. And so 2019, my word for the year has been completion, because I was signed up for about 5 different things that had deadlines, and that I had to realize, okay, I can't sign up for anything else. I need to focus on what I've already registered for. And so this year, while I have attended, you know, a handful of births this year, a lot of this year has been focusing on, let me complete my certification, which I did over the summer. Let me finish all of these wonderful trainings that I've signed up for. And so I'm feeling good about that, you know. So when I look forward to 2020, I see it as I feel like I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm always going to want to continue to learn. But I feel like now that I've gotten a lot of these trainings under my belt, I'm more so excited to, like, how can I grow the clientele side of what I'm doing and actually put into practice what I've been learning. So. Well, hopefully this is a good way to do it. Hopefully people are going to find you, and especially, you know, This is another thing that Hannah, who I most recently talked to, mentioned. She's like, sometimes a doula will say, like, well, I can serve anybody. And that's true. Like, you could, out of your skill, out of your just sort of doula spirit that we all have, or we wouldn't get in the work, you could find a way to serve anybody who needed you, but to actually be able to match people, where people find someone that they really, really feel that sense of comfort with, and then their body does the work that it needs to do without any of the extra emotional toll, or any of the extra just work of creating that space for themselves, because you create that space for them. So so I hope just highlighting the postpartum mood disorder screening, and people that might be higher risk for that, hypno babies, but also that could, all of the different hypno methods, and then VBAC. Those are things that you've really especially tried to excel in. So good. Are there any restrictions with your location of where you can and can't travel to as far as births?
So I was living in Conshohocken, so west of Philly, but now I'm actually in South Jersey, so I'm kind of close to Cherry Hill. So I'm actually grateful that I already lived in this neck of the woods, so that it's like I was already kind of in the suburbs of Philly and then Philadelphia. Like, I never would have said, like, oh, South Jersey, let me try to go out there, too, because I didn't live there. But now that I live there, that has kind of opened up this new area, a service area. But because this was my home for so long, I see myself really just having a greater service area. So, definitely looking to grow in the South Jersey area. I come back into Philly all the time. A number of births I have lined up are happening, Pennsylvania Hospital. And so I'm still open to going back out to the Philly suburbs, as opportunities arise. Okay. So, I think it just depends on how far out. But,
well, and sometimes people are in Jersey and are looking for someone that doesn't have to come across the bridge, especially if they're expecting, second, third, fourth baby that might come a little more quickly. So it's always good to know who's on which side of the bridge, although the bridge gets you into Philly pretty quickly. Tunia, you're our AV tech today. You're everything. Everything I never knew I wanted for this interview. We probably have just a couple more minutes to wrap up. So are there any sort of, I know we talked a little bit about how you work with PALs. Are there any other either groups that you interact with, or doulas in particular that you sort of collaborate with that are worth mentioning? Some of the ways you're building those networks.
So PALS, I serve as the prenatal match coordinator for families that are looking for a doula and may not be able to afford those services. So I've really enjoyed that and being able to connect with people through that. One of my goals this year also has been putting myself out there. Maybe a little more out of my comfort zone, because I am a little more on the shy, reserved side, and so I've had to push myself. And so certain months out of the year, my goal was like, okay, this month I'm going to reach out to one person, and then the next month, okay, let me reach out to 2 more new people. And so Sina, who I know mentioned my name to you. Anyway,
Sina was the one that said you gotta connect with Mallori.
So when I met with her, it just felt like we had known each other forever. I don't know, it's just so sweet, a sweet connection. I had reached out to Nicole Sawyers-Todd, who I think you're gonna
She's coming on Thursday.
Yes. So she's also a hypno doula in the area, and so when I knew I was doing the Hypno Babies training, I noticed that she was as well, and I was like so nervous to reach out to her, and then I did, and now like she and I, like, we talk all the time. She's just such a great listening ear, and I mean I'm learning so much from her too. And so it's funny, and I even told her, I said, I can't believe I was so afraid to reach out to you. But it was, so I think all this to be said, I look back over like where I was this time last year, and I just see like my confidence has grown a lot. Like I still have so much to learn, but the more I connect with other doulas, I realized it doesn't have to be scary. It's actually really good because we need a network. We need to feel supported. We need to have people that we can reach out to. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've met lots of people. I think now that I'm in New Jersey, I'm starting to meet more people out in that area, which has been really nice too. Like Kat LaPlante and like just lots of people in that area that I'm getting to know. So it's been good for me, I think, to realize I can reach out of my comfort zone. Like, I'm going to be okay.
I mean, you showed up here and got on live video today, and you didn't know me before you got here.
No,
so
and so I'm just grateful to meet you as well. And I think I'm just realizing and learning, like, the more connected we all become, it helps strengthen us, I think, as a birth community, but then it also is also going to help all the families that we serve.
Absolutely.
Because the more people we know, like you were saying, like helping people find the right match for them, I think that can happen to a greater degree the more that we all are supporting one another and learn people's strengths and areas of interest. And I just think more doors continue to open the more people that I meet, and I'm just grateful for that. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm really happy to connect with you, and to hopefully even from this, we'll be connecting you to some people that will be one day be so grateful that we sat down here and did this, because it's how they found you as their doula, and even some more doulas that I don't know. One of these times we have to just get a bunch of people over here for coffee and turn the camera on with 10 doulas. So, but thanks for taking the time, and we will have a blog that goes up with this that will have all of your information so people can get in touch with you if they would like to. They could follow you. You have a beautiful website.
Thank you.
And,
Been
great.
working hard on that.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's
Takes
really,
a long
really
time,
nice.
But I thought, trying to do things as cost effective as possible here in the beginning, which means I'm spending lots of hours on it, and that's okay. That's what I got to do right now.
Yep, and it's great. It has so much good information. So, just say the name of the website.
So my business is Thrive Birth and Maternal Support. But the website is thrivebirthsupport.com.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we'll get all the other information, but people can definitely find it there. And that's it for now. But thank you for being here. Thanks for whoever joined us. All right. Always. And now.